1874 Preview Show.
1874, it's time for a preview show as Villa take on Bournemouth at Villa Park on Sunday. I believe it's a 3 o'clock kickoff, but I have not checked that before we've come on. This show is in association with Luke Roper. If you use the code TVV20, then you'll get 20% off everything Luke have to offer, including the lovely new Chris Wokes range that they have released. I'm your host, Dan Bardell, joined by David Reed, my Sky Sports News colleague, to preview the aforementioned game. I see a lot of you in the chat early doors, some absolute slander going on in the chat, Dave. I did say, and it was my fault that we were late today because I was trying to change my lighting situation in my new house and I managed to get it working, but it was a little bit late.
Well worth it. Well worth the wait.
Yeah. Dave
Just add
Reed,
that little bit of colour.
Invest in a light, Dave Reed. You need to, or we'll invest in a light for you, I guess. Helen, straight in the comments, loving the glasses, Dave. That's what I said. Well before we came on. We've got, as I said, there is some slander in there as well. AVFC says that I would be seeing which baseball cap to put on. Joke's on you because I have done my hair. I've been up since 4 a.m. Hair was done by 4:30 a.m. this morning and it's still looking fresh. Lewis 88 on time as always, never changed. Dan, it was me today, so I can't really argue with that. What else have we got? With some questions around the game, which we'll come to, because obviously we are going to preview the game when I stop this gibberish. And yes, Johnny Wright says, to be honest, complexion looking immaculate. Could be talking about me.
Hopefully
be talking about Dave. Unsure. But let's go then, Dave. Let's do what we've come here to do and preview the game. But no, let's not actually. Let's ask how your holiday was. That's very rude.
My holiday was fantastic, thank you.
Where was it?
It was in Turkey. A place called Side, very nice. Great weather. My skin tone doesn't match the weather, unfortunately. I'm just naturally pale. I'm factor 30 all the way.
Hiding under a parasol for the entirety of the holiday.
Yeah, I'm one of those guys. But no, it was very nice, very relaxing. Got to switch off. Poorly planned though. Because I was away for both. I was away for the first leg and then landed for the second leg. So I was watching it in the car. I wasn't driving, but on the way back round the M25 after landing at Stansted. So there was a lot of screaming on the M25 last night from me.
Okay, I can imagine. It was a very, very stressful evening last night, wasn't it, Dave? I don't know how much of it you ended up seeing it on your travels back, but I mean, the M25 was quite stressful at the best of times, as I well know, because I feel like I live on that road at the moment. But Villa got through. They didn't play well. I said that I thought this would be such a tough tie, and it really, really was. I thought Lille were probably the better team in both games. Villa just about kept themselves alive in 90 minutes. Villa probably had the better chances in extra time. It goes to penalties. I've got to be honest, as soon as it went to penalties, I had absolutely no doubt in my mind whatsoever that Villa were going to get through. Because they just, Emi Martinez, he just comes alive in those situations.
Yeah, he does. Look, I think we can probably go a bit stronger and say that we got away with it over those 2 legs against Lille. I think, well, they definitely deserve to go through over the 2 legs. They can count themselves really unfortunate given the way they played in the first leg, the chances they created there at Villa Park, and then again last night at home. I think Lille, reflecting on it, will kind of wonder how they didn't manage to get through that tie. And yesterday, it was almost one of those games where you thought the only way that Villa were going to get back into the game was if Lille gave them a goal. And essentially, they gave Villa a goal late in the game when the goalkeeper was challenged by his own player and Matty Cash managed to put it away. And as soon as it reached the penalty shootout, you're right, there was a little bit of... a little bit more confidence running through me simply because you have the best goalkeeper in the world in your net and the way he performed in that penalty shootout was just magical. It's one of those nights that will live long in the memory. And, you know, this is a I know the competition sometimes gets a bit of a bad rap and fans might think, you know, we need to be concentrating on the league, etc. But this is a night that is a kind of once in a generation night. This is 40 odd years since we've been in a European semi-final, and those are the nights that supporters will remember, and those are the nights that will be discussed among families for the next generation on. And being able to tell stories of how Emi Martinez performed in penalty shootouts in Europe. There's just nothing better than that. And it was such a fantastic performance in that penalty shootout. And it's just so him, the fact that he managed to get peculiar 2 yellow cards and stay on the field. It was just ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous, but just so Emi Martinez. And it was sort of encompassed him as a character and encompasses him as a goalkeeper. The fact that he managed to get away with that and then save the penalties.
Yeah, when I was growing up, obviously Mark Bosnich was the penalty hero. The Tranmere game was quite. I was 8, I think, in the, when the Tranmere game came on, and Bosnich obviously saved those 3 penalties. So that was the first penalty shootout I ever saw in my life, and then I've had plenty of haunting memories of penalties ever since. The first one I was at live was Inter Milan, but there was no real goalkeeping heroics there. Bosnich was such a hero and such an icon for Villa, but I never thought this would happen. I actually think Emi Martinez may have overtaken him with his skullduggery last night.
Yeah. I remember that my first penalty shootout memory was the Inter Milan one, and then the Tranmere one, and my first ever Villa shirt was the Bosnich multicoloured one, and that was a favourite shirt of mine. But you're right, I think Emi Martinez has probably overtaken him, not just for people from our generation, but from a younger generation as well. New Villa fans coming to watch games. He's the perfect character that you can really kind of relate to and someone that you can have a real affinity with. And he is someone that's going to be bringing new fans and new eyeballs to Aston Villa. The Aston Villa goalkeeper is on the front page of the biggest newspaper in Argentina. He's on the front page of the biggest sports daily in Argentina today. He's being talked about in England. He's being talked about in Europe. And, if you're going to put this and boil it down to simple business terms, which isn't very nice in football, but this is going to create more eyeballs on Aston Villa Football Club. It's going to create more clicks on Aston Villa Football Club content, and that in turn means money coming into the club. So when you've got a player like that on your books, and I know that's quite a cold way to think about things, but having your club talked about is so important these days, and Emi Martinez does that for us.
Yeah, I mean, look, I've been doing well for work anyway over the last few years, but I've got to say Villa in the last year, I probably, I get to go on TalkSport 2 and talk about Villa every single week. From my perspective, that wasn't something that was happening before. And, having a box office player like Emi Martinez, I've spent a lot of time today at TalkSport talking about Emi Martinez. So you're right, he does get more, Villa get more coverage, which is a good thing. He won't be getting any coverage in the next game though, because in Europe he will be suspended, Dave.
Yeah, confirmed today, wasn't it, by UEFA that he is going to miss the first leg, which is obviously disappointing because not only his quality that he brings, but also his leadership as well on the pitch and within that dressing room. It'll be a big miss, but I'm sure he'll be there in some capacity in the stand or in the dressing room at some point. And he'll be able to be involved in the build up to that first game, be involved in the team talks and everything like that. So yes, he'll be a big miss on the pitch and his leadership, but I'm sure he'll be around the group. It was such a quirky situation, wasn't it? I had no idea of that rule in that penalty shootout. I'm not too sure how many people did do it at that point, but now it's come to light. And UEFA have confirmed now that he will miss that first leg with the yellow card situation.
I genuinely thought at the time the ref had ran over to book him, suddenly remembered that he'd already booked him in the game and didn't want to be in that situation. That was what I thought had happened at the time. Obviously, Douglas Luiz thought he was going to get sent off as well. I think Emi Martinez thought he was going to get sent off. There's no way he would have known about that rule. Absolutely no chance. It's just like, you're right, it just couldn't happen to anyone else. All the stuff, he didn't start playing first team football, Emi Martinez, until he was 28. He didn't become a regular number one goalkeeper playing every week until he was 28. At Villa. To think what he's achieved since that's happened and the fact he only cost 16 million, it is, one of the more interesting football journeys that there's ever been. The stuff he's gone on to do since he moved to Villa is absolutely incredible. And if he can cap that off with a Conference League trophy lift and also, getting Villa into the Champions League, it really is just a fascinating story, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is. And on my holiday reading list over the last 10 days has been Peter Schmeichel's book, and he I can see similarities between Martinez.
It's a strange book to pick, Dave. Of all the books footballers' books you got, I like Peter Schmeichel. Obviously, he did play for Villa briefly as well. It's such a bizarre book to just come out with to go on your holiday.
just fancied it. So it was there on the shelf, and I thought I haven't read it yet, so I
I
took
knew
it
you were a
away with
shelf
me.
man. I knew you weren't a Kindle boy.
No, yeah, so I'm a paperback guy. Got to have
Yeah, I
something
was gonna say.
physical in the hand. But going back to Schmeichel, he. I feel like there's so many similarities between the personality of Schmeichel and Martinez. You know, the Man United goalkeeper, he was the first one to kind of walk into United and say, I want to train with the outfield players and do goalkeeper drills in my own time. You know, he would go out onto the pitch and not even want his own water bottle in his net, because he was of the frame of mind that nothing was going to pass him, not even his own water bottle, into his own net. And he obviously, his personality on the pitch was quite aggressive when he used to talk to his centre backs at Manchester United, and he said he used that to G himself up, and he also used, when he went away from home at Manchester United to places like Liverpool, and he used the Anfield crowd that obviously had a very vociferous reception for him whenever he turned up there. And it feels a little bit similar with Emi Martinez, who uses the crowd to his own advantage. And I think it was the interview that he gave to the club after the game, when he talked about, I've had so many things, when he referencing what was being thrown at him from the crowd in Lille, and he says, I've had so many things thrown at me in my career that have hit my back, and I just get up and carry on. The words to those effects, and I thought that was absolutely fantastic. He's talked and gone on record previously about his upbringing in Argentina, not particularly saying that he was from a poor background, but certainly wasn't from, a well-off background in Argentina, and his mum and dad had to work excessively hard in order to provide him with the time and opportunity to go and play football. He left home very young at 17 to come over to England, and it's been a long road for him to get there. And I think you can tell when he plays that he's appreciating every single second that he's got on the football pitch. And I think almost it works in Villa's favour that he has that background and also has that confidence, and the fact that he's won big things in his career already while being an Aston Villa player. I think that works in our favour for his future at the club, because it feels whenever he talks that he's quite relaxed. He's just relaxed with his career, relaxed about how things are going. Obviously, clearly loves playing for Villa, and long may it continue. Really, he is a player that will go down in Villa history now, because he's one of those players that people will talk about for years to come.
Yeah, I mean, I've got my 11 in my head that I've always had my best Villa 11 since I've been watching Villa play, and it's always been Bosnich as the goalkeeper. I won't ever put anyone into my 11 until they leave the club. But I think when Martinez leaves, I think he'll probably replace Bosnich, which is a shame, because I know Bozzy, and he is like a really, really nice guy, like so friendly, so easy to talk to, a good laugh, always really helpful as well. But Martinez, he is just something else. You mentioned Schmeichel. Martinez has got to be the next most crazy goalkeeper to play in the Premier League. After I thought Schmeichel was he might even be crazier than Schmeichel, in fairness. But yeah, I was asked on TalkSport earlier actually whether I thought Martinez could ever leave Villa, and I don't think he will. The goalkeeping market is a bit like the strikers market. You're relying on a big move elsewhere. I don't think there's anywhere that's a step up for Emi Martinez. Tommy in the comments has just said Martinez is home. I think I'd agree with that. I think I'd also say, and I said this about Emery the other day, that Martinez has been absolutely fantastic for Aston Villa. Aston Villa has been absolutely fantastic for him as well. He doesn't go on and do the things he's done without that move. So, just what I hear. I think we've talked way too long about Emi Martinez here. We're supposed to be previewing the Bournemouth game. I think maybe we do a video at some point. I want to step up the content and do a bit more content, make it a little bit more regular. Maybe we'll do a whole video on Martinez and what he means to us and what he means to Aston Villa, because he has been an incredible signing. I should have a bit more time now. My life's been so manic. So hopefully, we'll get some more videos out. Let's preview the Bournemouth game, Dave, because that is what we're here to do. Villa have obviously gone into extra time on Thursday, which, we could have done without 120 minutes, let's be honest. We've got through, so really it doesn't matter in that regard. But we've played 30 extra minutes. We're going up against Bournemouth, who will be well rested. A team that I thought they gave us a really good game when we were in top form earlier on in the season, just back end of 2023, that game. It feels like it was. This is no gimme on Sunday. It's a massive opportunity for Villa, but how much do you think the extra time, also the mental tiredness that comes, the travel tiredness that comes, how much is that going to affect Villa on Sunday?
I think it would have affected Villa more if we'd have lost last night. I think there certainly would have been a kind of flat feel to the team travelling back. But the fact that they managed to get over the line last night, I think, will give them that real extra boost that is needed on this run in towards the end of the season. And it was talked about last night in the post match interviews that the crowd are going to be so important on Sunday to really give the players that lift. If this is a time to come together and not sort of think that any game is going to be an easy turnover when Bournemouth come home, let's come to Villa Park, then let's lift the players, because they're going to need that extra little bit of energy, because it was energy sapping last night. The fact that players have had to come on and play lengthy minutes, the fact that Matty Cash has been out for a significant period and managed to play the whole game and extra time. It'll be interesting to see what starting 11 he goes for. I think there will be some form of rotation somewhere, but there can't actually be that much because the squad depth isn't there. So if ever there's a time for Villa Park to be rocking, it's Sunday.
Yeah, I mean, even Zaniolo went off injured. Like Rodgers was probably, the plan was to give him a little bit of a rest, but he's ended up playing a huge amount of minutes yesterday because Zaniolo went off injured. I've got to say, I thought Bailey did really, really well when he came on. He helped change the game. I think that clip of him, saying we've got time, come on. I think that's a brilliant clip and shows how much he's grown as probably a human being on the football pitch for Villa over the last 12 months. Because I don't think that's the kind of thing we'd have been seeing from him a year ago. He had heavy strapping on his leg as well. So, Villa is kind of walking wounded a little bit. I think he'll probably revert back to the team that played against Arsenal. Diego was given a little bit of a rest. You've mentioned Cash is coming back from injury. I think he probably does drop to the bench, even though, he scored that important goal. It was nowhere near as bad as Twitter would have you believe. Someone said in the comments there, Matty Cash was the only one trying to score. I think that's Funky JJ who said that. And, Villa are hamstrung a little bit. They can't make too many changes, but that would be, I would expect us to line up pretty similar to what we did against Arsenal, although Zaniolo's not fit. I mean, Bailey has to start. The RB plays off the striker. It's interesting, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, there's obviously something a little bit on Bailey's fitness, because I was shocked that he didn't start last night, and the fact that he came on and played so well, despite what seems like he is being a little bit inhibited by an injury, then, it shows how good he was really and how good he has been. I mean, it all depends on what's going on with Zaniolo, because I think if he's fit enough, I think he will start. But Bailey was excellent. I was a little bit surprised that he took a penalty, because obviously the messages were flying around last night. He wasn't in my top 5 penalty takers for my guess of who Villa were going to have as penalties. I don't think he's taken a penalty in his whole league career. He's taken a couple in cups and a couple for Jamaica. So he wasn't in my top 5, but he was so good when he came on. And, if he is fit enough to play, I think this game on Sunday is probably important enough for him to kind of start and get through it. I've got to give a shout out as well to Morgan Rodgers, who, I must say, I had been impressed since he joined Villa. But I was not concerned, but I kind of wasn't on the hype train that some supporters were, thinking that, he's playing absolutely magnificently. I thought that he had showed a couple of deficiencies, but with time that would be ironed out. But it feels already that he's ironing out those perhaps naivety in terms of challenging players, a little bit kind of lapse of concentration defensively. It feels almost like he's ironed those deficiencies out already, and it's taken 2 months. So I've been so impressed with him. Just
speaks for Emery, doesn't it? Really?
Yeah, it speaks for Emery. It speaks for Emery. It speaks for the scouting department getting him in. It speaks for the player himself really wanting to learn and adapt to life in the Premier League. And in an ideal world, I think we've talked about this before, but in an ideal world, I don't think Emery would have played him as much as he has done. But his hand has been forced really, and Rodgers has stepped up, and I thought he was excellent again when he came on in such a difficult circumstance. away from home in a European quarter-final. I don't know how many times, if ever, he really would have experienced anything like that. I'm not too sure whether he got on the bench for any Man City away legs or anything like that. I don't think so off the top of my head, but stand to be corrected on that. So I don't know whether he would have experienced anything like that, but I thought he was great. But yeah, I mean, I kind of agree with you in terms of the starting 11. You feel like Carlos will come back in and Konsa will shift across because Matty Cash probably can't do the same again.
I mean,
on
Cash might have to
Sunday.
play in midfield at this rate with the injuries.
Yeah, exactly. And then the rest of the back four picks itself really, and then it's a question of who's fit enough to start. I don't think John McGinn, mind you, nobody really had a great game, but I think him in particular struggled a little bit. But he came off, so he should feel fresher for Sunday. Whether he starts on the left, depending on Zaniolo, or off Watkins, or whether Rodgers starts left and McGinn. I mean,
he has to. Surely McGinn has to be with Tielemans. I don't think Arobenham's going to start. So I think it has to be McGinn and Tielemans in the middle, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean that's the other option, isn't it? I mean, I did have a thought today that he might go with Tim to kind of bring him in and in an environment that's quite safe for him at Villa Park, and he'll have a lot of help and a lot of crowd help behind him. But again, it depends on fitness wise, doesn't it? If Emery thinks that players are entering what the conditioning people are called like the red zone, where they're kind of at risk of injury, then his hand again might be forced in terms of bringing players in. But if he decides not to do that, then McGinn will have to play central midfield.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see that 11. Obviously, we don't really know anything about the injuries at the moment. I don't think Emery held one of those weird virtual press conferences?
I think he has. It was planned, but I haven't seen much come out of it or anything come out of it. I'm not too sure. I think something was planned, but I don't know whether it happened or not.
Let's rely on. I mean, I've been driving back. I've not seen anything. Let's see if the 1874 community, the 1874 family, can let us know if anything of note was said in the chat, please. I've completely forgotten what I was going to ask you about next day. I mean, Moreno's now out as well. He wasn't on the bench last night. So young Finley Munro, young left back, was on the bench last night. We're having to pull people up from the academy now. Interesting fact: Finley Munro is actually Declan Rice's cousin. Don't know whether you knew that.
Did not know that.
People know that. Yeah, Declan Rice's cousin, currently on the bench for Villa. So yeah, that's an interesting little fact for you there. Someone just said in the comments about playing Tielemans as a 10 instead of Diaby. I really don't think we're in the position to do that. But I spoke about Tielemans with Jacob last week. I'm absolutely loving Youri Tielemans at the moment. He's a player I've always loved, a player I always wanted at Villa, but I just didn't feel it was like ever a realistic option, because it probably wasn't, because we weren't really very good, and Leicester were quite good at that point. But we've got him, and I think that's the second half of the season. He's played most games. In fact, he had a brief injury. He didn't play a couple, but he's played most games. But actually, since December, he's played most games. Long gone are those days before Christmas where people saying he wasn't mobile enough, not good enough. The more he's played, the better he's just got. And I love footballers that get the weight of pass spot on and that can play those kind of arcing, cutting through balls. And that's certainly what Tielemans has been doing, particularly in the Premier League in recent weeks.
Yeah, he's been outstanding. I couldn't really put it better myself. He was getting a little bit of heat, wasn't he, earlier in the season about form and physicality and things like that. But he's a player who is, always play, those balls, those passes that are so impressive will become a lot easier when he's at his kind of physical peak. And I feel like he's a player that needs games to build a rhythm for that. And he's just got himself right in the absolute sweet spot of playing enough games, getting enough minutes, getting in that rhythm. And I think he's at the peak of his physicality right now. I don't think there can be any question marks. I think I said after the Fulham game on 1874 that, I think he was like, in the last couple of games, he was right up there in terms of distance covered for players.
Yeah.
So, he is getting about the pitch. There's that argument, about physicality can now be chucked out the window because it's simply not there. When he's at his physical peak, he is one of the most dynamic players that Villa have in that midfield, and he's showing that, aggressiveness to get about the pitch, which is what Unai Emery demands of his midfielders or wide players, or indeed the player that is next to Ollie Watkins. So I've been so impressed with him. Long may it continue. He's needed to be there, and he's needed to be fit, because certainly the last couple of years for him, the tail end of his career at Leicester hadn't gone the way he wanted it to go. And a lot of that was down to niggly injuries that he kept picking up and wasn't getting that consistency of game time, and his form suffered because of that. But you have to give him his flowers because he's been brilliant.
Yeah, just a few people mentioning Semenya in the chat. Let's talk about Bournemouth now. It's a case of 1 in, 1 out for Bournemouth this week, and I think Sinisterra is out. He got a bad injury. He's probably going to miss the rest of the season. Might be back for the final day, but it sounds like Semenya trained today, and that he is going to be someone who comes back for Bournemouth. Found him an interesting watch. He said he really caused us problems in the game at their place earlier on in the season as well. Bournemouth are an interesting one, aren't they? Because they're not riding high in the league or anything like that. They're probably not going to finish top half. Gary O'Neill did a good job to keep them up last year. Iraola started slowly, but they gave him time, didn't have any knee-jerk reactions, which I really, really liked from Bournemouth. And now it feels like they're kind of finding out what they are or discovering what they are under Iraola. I still think it's been a productive season for Bournemouth. Obviously, they've got Solanke very much in the goals, like Watkins. I don't think he takes the penalties, or I think only one of his goals might be penalty. So his record for a team in the bottom half of the table is absolutely superb. We all talk about Watkins' record, which is brilliant, but Solanke's not far behind, and he's playing for a team in the bottom half. They're an interesting team, aren't they? And whenever I've seen them this season, I've actually quite enjoyed watching them.
Yeah, they are an enjoyable team to watch. I think they've had you're right. I mean, the manager came in after he'd done a good job in Spain at Rayo Vallecano, and there was a lot of talk about him potentially being the next big thing in management coming out of Spain. And the opening, I think it was 9 games they didn't win, and there was a lot of talk about his future. The owner, Bill Foley, even flew in for that 10th game, and there was a lot of talk that if they didn't get a result in that 10th game, that he would be going. And when you listen to some of the interviews that the players gave at that time, I think they were saying that, we're just waiting for this to click. We're just waiting for this to click. I think Iraola managed to get buy-in from the players pretty quickly during pre-season and as to what and how he was going to set the team up. It didn't work out in those first 9 games, and you've got to say, it could have gone pear-shaped from there on in. But after that poor start, I think they've been one of the better formed teams since then. And actually, if you kind of take those 9 games out of their season, their form would probably put them around that kind of top 10 region. So it bodes well for them next season. That I think you're right. They will see this as a positive season. Bournemouth, they've got the building blocks there. They play this kind of 4-2-3-1 most weeks, and it's high octane. They will press high and they will break fast and they will play direct, and there will be long balls. But long balls sometimes have this negative connotation to them, but I think it's played with purpose when Bournemouth do it, and they manage to get up the pitch high. And I think they caused Villa problems when we tried to play out from the back at the game at their place, and we ended up giving it away, and they scored, and we only managed to really snatch a point thanks to an unbelievable header from Ollie Watkins right at the end. So this is going to be a really tough game. They play some good football, Bournemouth, and I think next season for them will be a really interesting one, potentially what they do in the summer, given their sporting director has left to go to Liverpool. There'll be a new structure in place for them in the summer. But if they can get some players in, I think the building blocks are there. The base is there for them to make a real run at the top 10.
Yeah, apparently we've got a frozen screen, I'm being told, in my ear and in the chat as well, but you can still hear us. Don't understand why this keeps happening. We did complain to the software company when this happened last time, but obviously they have decided they didn't want to fix it. So yeah, frozen screen.
Let's hope it's a better freeze frame than the last one I got.
You just know it's not going to be a good one for either of us, don't we? We know. We know already. Just Lee's flashed it up on the screen. Oh, not too bad.
Yeah, it could be worse. Could be worse.
Not as bad as last time. But yeah, apologies for those of you that are watching on the video that you'll now just have to stare at a frozen screen for the rest of the video. If you're listening via audio, it won't matter. Maybe audio is the best way to go at the moment with the channel. What's interesting with this game from a Villa perspective is that it's not cloudy with a chance of UFOs. I don't think it is. It's the internet. My internet I'm paying for the top internet now, and I've had no problems here since I've moved on the other stuff I'm going on. So it's not internet. It's the bloody software that Adam Bates pays through the nose for us. So yeah, we need to get that sorted. Anyway, as I was saying, the interesting thing for Villa ahead of this is that We've got 2 home games now before Tottenham play again in the Premier League, and the battle for now, what is fourth, because it was a bad night for Coefficient FC last night. Fourth is now pivotal if we want to be playing Champions League football. A chance to go 9 points clear from them over the next 9 days. Them and then having 3 games in hand. I would bet against them getting 9 points from those 3 games in hand, and they've got some tough games coming up.